Welcome, everybody. I'm delighted to be back here with this group. The Global Gathering is a wonderful group, and you guys always have open arms energetically. And I like to see your smiling faces at the beginning as well. And for people that are watching the replay, there are so many wonderful resources if you just check at victorzamet.com. Delighted to be here with you to celebrate Samhain, or Halloween, as most of us call it. And today we're recording on October 30th. And so Samhain is tomorrow, the 31st, unless you are on the other side of the world and you're already in Halloween right now. What I want to tell you about Halloween is that I got to experience people talking about Halloween last month in the place where it originated historically, which would be Ireland and parts of Scotland. I spent several weeks there in September. And I was in the Scottish Highlands, I was all over Ireland, and I actually got to even be there for the Queen's cortege, saw the Queen in the cortege a couple of times in Edinburgh. And one of the things that was interesting is that I remember a couple people would talk to me and say, "Are you going to be here for Samhain or Halloween?" And they would say, you Americans really get into this with dressing up at the parties. We just go and have fish and chips and beers. And don't get me wrong, they dress up and everything, but it's also a fall festival. And that is actually the origin of Samhain. It was a Celtic festival to celebrate the harvest and to thank the ancestors and all of the energies, be they the elementals, the fairies, or any other positive energies that helped to have a robust harvest year, to let loose and have a really good celebration for working so hard to grow the crops all year, and to invoke good things to come for the winter. And so over time, it's become one of the biggest commercial holidays in many, many countries. You can see I've got pumpkins here. And I have before had parties where people bring their pet, their dog or their cat, and dress them up if they will wear some kind of costume. So we all have our own unique way of celebrating. In the Celtic traditions, there were also lanterns that were used, and those lanterns were used to light up everyone's auras, everyone's energies, so that the so-called dead, the ancestors, and also the elementals could find them. Because the thinking was the veil is thin, but let's help them out and bring them light. And so it's also morphed into sort of like I call it scary bad evil, all one word, hyphenated, scary bad evil, sort of a holiday of people doing marathons of watching scary movies. And that's all well and good. And it's fun if you enjoy the scary movies, not too bloody. I'm not too into the slasher ones, but the ones that just kind of give you the jump scares, people enjoy that. But that's not where Samhain came from. Is the veil thinner now? Well, for those of you who are in the live group, I see that someone has already typed in that question, and I've been getting that question for the last couple of weeks. I believe that this is the one time during the year that the veil is intrinsically thinner. However, the rest of the time, I think the veil is becoming thinner because we, you and I, and humanity are making it thinner. I think that veil is just a manifestation of our believing and acting as though we're separate from each other, as though we're separate from the source. And as more and more of humankind is realizing that we're not that far away from each other, people are learning to make their own direct connections with guides, loved ones, angels, the beloved people and pets who now are very much alive in the spirit world. We're thinning the veil. So if the veil is thinning, we're doing it. And I hope that we continue to do it, and I believe that we will. However, the few days before Samhain and the few days after, it's very, very thin. People who have never seen any kind of ADC or after death communication in their lives may get it around this time period. And there's like a heightened energy. And that, again, that's us, but the spirit world also draws near. And my guides, we were just at the park a while ago, and they were saying, get people to fill up that chat box with questions because we're all coming in. We're all going to tell you what we want to answer. But my guides were so excited about this because even in their world, on their plane, people are talking about how excited we are right now. And what better time to talk about all things metaphysical, paranormal, if you've had, and this is for your live audience now, if you've had some kind of experience that you don't quite understand, you want to ask about that, that's fine. I'm not going to be giving the personal messages as those of you heard before we started recording. I've done that before. I'll do it again sometime here. No worries. But let's really share those things that, oh my gosh, I could never ask this, or oh my gosh, I can't believe this concept, or something like that. I will share with you from my research, from my personal experience, and whatever the guides want to say. And just like when I have an event at my website's carefreemedium.com, just like when I have an event on my own, a lot of times I'm heading one direction with a teaching or explanation, and a guide will step forward and take me over here. Like, this is more important, or this is more meaningful for the most people who are going to hear this. So here we go. So I'm heading over to the question box now. And I may be out of, I'm not going to be in chronological order necessarily. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But just so that you know, Leo Roy, who is my primary spirit guide, is to my right now. And I literally can see his finger on the screen. And I'm seeing it with objective clairvoyance, which is seeing it as though it's an object in the room most of the time. And sometimes I see it with the subjective clairvoyance, which is in the mind's eye. And I just trust, where I'm going. Here we go. So let's go back. Is there any truth to the idea that this time of year, the veil is thinner? You've just heard my theory that we're making it thinner, but this time of year it really is. So if there's somebody that you want to reach out to in the spirit world on your own at some time in the next day or two, do it. Give them a heads up. Tell them, say tonight at this specific time, I'm going to tune in, pick a place that you'll meet them, create it in your mind's eye, and then meditate and wait. Even if you don't feel their presence or you don't feel like they were there, they may show up later because you're going to give them a huge energy boost. We're all tapped in right now to this collective consciousness of excitement and thinking about, and from time to time focusing about the other side of life. You can't miss it. I was in a coffee shop earlier, and it's like all these decorations and everything. Everybody's thinking about it. And so are the spirit people. They see what we're doing here. Take advantage of that thin veil. When asked to bring in a transition loved one, are you ever informed that they are in a new incarnation and not available? Well, some of you were at my event that we had in Scottsdale just before COVID hit in January 2020. And that was a big question. That was a huge question that one of the attendees kept asking because she was so worried that she hadn't heard yet from a loved one. And the answer that I kept getting then is the same thing I'm getting now. And by the way, if you see my camera like jumping or whatever, hold on. Well, just stay on the side then. I have gone through 5 or 6 very, very expensive 4K cameras. It's the spirit activity is all I can think of. Autofocus is turned off. It shouldn't jump around. But anyway, go back to the question. See, it's like I'm a kid on sugar right now because the guides are so happy to be here to be doing this. So she kept asking, is it possible I haven't heard from my mom because I think she wanted to reincarnate and live somewhere else or whatever. And so we talked about it, and we talked about her expectations, and she was just expecting her mom to come in a certain way. I heard from her later, and her mom came in a different way, dream visit instead of meditation visit or what have you. So let me tell you the bottom line from, I'm going to say about 200 years of research from mediums who were found to be reliable and from spiritual teachers. I have yet to hear of anyone saying, no, I'm sorry, Bob cannot come through right now. He's reincarnated in another country. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And I'm using humor, just to keep it light, but I've never had anybody say they're busy, they're reincarnated. One of the things that used to really give me a headache, and I've just come to accept that I'll never understand because I'm in the human form right now, and my head cannot wrap around this, even through studies of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, everything that I've read and studied, every seminar I've been to, every book I've read, and I'm really well connected. And I know a lot of people who do a lot of research. It's this concept right here. Life of the soul is non-linear and non-local. We don't live in like a timeline, and we don't live entirely locally. For example, everybody here watching this recording, sitting here live, there's a part of you that's not in your body right now, according to this theory, which I believe to be true. There's a part of you that's always connected with the spirit world, but your consciousness is operating this body right now. So your soul is here, but it can also be one foot in the other world. Okay, we just are not real aware of it, because how would we get anything done here? If the teacher gave you the answers to all the test questions and you could just reach the other side and grab anything, anytime, information or knowledge wise or wisdom wise, how would you learn anything? How would you have friction? What would you rub up against? How would you learn? So to think of it this way, think of a big circle. And at any point on the circle, part of your soul could be somewhere else. And that is, I think of that circle of life and the Lion King and that song, but there's truth to that imagery of a circle, like the soul is eternal. And one theory is that I'm living several lives right now in different times, in the future and in the past. Don't ever think that a soul will forget you. The soul that loves you will never forget you. That part of their personality is always there. It's kept perfectly safe, healthy, and whole. The experiences are still there. We come here for the experiences. Why would a loving source let us forget those and be somewhere else? Right? Okay. Does everyone work with angels? Oh, who's this? Oh, Wakana, my healing guide is here. Our guides have had many lifetimes, many incarnations, and they may choose a certain life that they really liked and come in looking that way, suggesting that name to you, putting that name in your head. And she comes in as a Japanese woman, a healer, and she wants to say something about angels. I'll repeat. I don't want to go into a trance, but just kind of blend a little bit. Her syntax is very different, but I'm going to deliver the information in my syntax. And it is that angels work with everyone, but not everyone works overtly with angels. Angels work with everyone, but not everyone works overtly with angels. Fortunately, there are intercessories who also help get information through. And then she says, like me. Oftentimes, as a healing guide, she finds that the support of the angels helps to focus the energy, but she whispers in the ear, open your heart just a little bit more. And that lets the angels come in. So in one way, everyone is working with angels, but not aware. Okay. And I have no control over the guides right now, but I also have, I don't want to control them. They're being very creative. I also have LR saying that you must open your perception of what an angel is. And that an angel can also be connecting to a thought form around us. If we are praying and visualizing ourselves healthy and whole when we're ill, that creates a thought form that can attract certain guides and healers and angels to come to you, and they'll work with you. even if you're unaware, but you simply prayed and you simply intended to see yourself heal, to be healed. You go scroll over here. I'm here. Again, I won't be going in order. If the guides are going to be participating, they get to pick where the questions come in the order here. I have had books fall from shelves and computer and printer going off and on by itself. I've even had a message on the computer which seemed to come from a website, but it has not. Should I be in fear? Well, that's funny. I heard we do not fear. We do not want you to fear. And it's sort of like a group message. My whole team is saying. I'm focusing on the person's name, that person, first initial J, who wrote this question. Hold on one second. And I'm writing that down. I put my pen on it and they say, guide, show me, help me feel. The person that's trying to get your attention, and notice I said person, I actually I heard in my right ear to tell you, Jay, ancestor, that you have a whole troop of guides that wants to help you, and it's an ancestor trying to get your attention. And I also, you said the printer going off and on. I'm being shown that it's because there's information. We're trying to tell you about printed words. We're trying to tell you about printed words. Don't be afraid. The more that you're afraid, the more you're going to get more interactions. It will escalate. So my best advice to you from me and my team is to tune in and start to have a conversation about who this is. Okay, you've got my attention. I'm paying attention now, and sit with them and maybe try to do some inspired writing about who they are, what they want. But this is your person. This is your person. If any of you are having strange electronic activities going on, especially right around now, I'm going to encourage you right now to ask who it is, to sit and really clear your mind. Do it at a time when you're not startled. You know, I can still get startled. I got startled by ghosts all over Scotland and Ireland. Was I scared? I think I was scared one time because I was in a very dark hallway all alone, but not really terrified, but I got out of there. But I'll tell you, when you're not startled about whatever happened, try to communicate. You've got my attention is the first thing to say, because it's like, whoa, okay, everybody, whoever's helping them, do things like open drawers or turn on lights or whatever, we've got their attention, and see if you can open a dialogue and find out what they want. And a lot of times what they want is just to be known, to be recognized with just hello. Even sometimes you can coexist with spirits, even if they're not your family that's hanging out, if you want to, if you're open to. Not all the time, but a lot. Okay, where are we going now, guides? When you hear messages from spirit during readings, is your higher self helping? And the follow-up question is, do you use a gatekeeper? Okay, this is me. The guides are going go ahead. So, okay. So in evidential mediumship, it's incumbent upon the medium to know exactly who is providing the message. We should identify the spirit, give evidence that it's really them, and then bring through their message, typically in that order, I hope. And when we know who the message is coming from, and we can say, even if it's a group message, there's 3 souls together and they're combining their energies to say this, or if it's one person or whatever, we're getting the information directly from the spirit to us. Okay. When a control or a gatekeeper, my word would be control with the training that I've had, when a control is used, a control is typically used if we're in trance. When I did study trance at Arthur Findlay College, but I'd already been working as an evidential medium for a long, long time. I had lifelong gifts. They taught us to get that great relationship with our control, and that when we give over in trance, that our control spirit comes in first and then is in charge of who can come through you. And so an evidential medium doesn't need a control. What I have noticed is that sometimes my guides will help the guides of the spirit that's coming through in evidential mediumship. Sometimes my guides will be, I'll feel them over here, like sort of like having a meeting, like caucusing with the guides of the spirit person to help communication come through. Okay, but I'm getting my information as an evidential medium directly from the spirit. That's the intention behind evidential mediumship. And as far as gatekeeper, if that means like centering and protection, I have methods for how I open up to do my work, and you know, who is invited. They must have my sitter's highest interests at heart. How do you clear spaces? For example, your home, in your own body and others. Excuse me. So how do you clear spaces of your home and your own body and others? So have you guys heard that term, spiritual hygiene? It's kind of like, I'm like, kind of sounds weird, but you know, the concept behind it is super good, meaning that, you know, we need to take care of our own energy. I wish everyone would claim responsibility for the energy they bring to a room, to a meeting, to a conversation, to any transaction or relationship in any way. You know, we need to be responsible for our own energy that we bring. However, sometimes our energy can be weighed down by what we take on from others, by what we're holding on to. You know, I'm told that in MRI studies of the brain, that the brain does not know the difference between remembering something that happened and actually having that something happening now. And so if we're walking around thinking about past things that made us unhappy, we can bring that energy with us to any kind of interaction that we're having and have unintended consequences. So as far as keeping your energy clean yourself, there's so many ways. I mean, literally there are whole books written about this. I can tell you what I do. Water is my best friend. Sorry. After flying a lot, this happens, colds, you name it. But anyway, water is my best friend. And I get depleted in potassium and magnesium. I already have a vitamin D deficiency, so I have to watch that. I already have immune system disorder that's chronic, so I have to watch that. And a lot of us mediums do. So we have to be very, very careful in how we use our energy. I am excellent at not carrying other people's energies with me, but I had to be to survive being an evidential medium and going through the training and sitting in development, because if you're going to carry the energy of your clients with you, you're living their life, not yours. And it becomes like a filter of how you're looking at your world through their experience. In the early days, I would know I was carrying clients' energy because I'd be thinking about them like the next day. And I don't remember readings, but I think about them and their sadness, their situation, or whatever. I don't do that anymore. And it's not because I'm not compassionate. I'm a very compassionate person. It's because I know I can't carry that with me. And now I have the blessing of forgetting sessions as soon as they end, unless something really, really stands out. Now let's take that to when I was back in corporate world and in university administration. And there's at any workplace, you know, all politics is local, right? Everything is happening at the local level. That's where things happen, get done. And there's a lot of politics in a workplace, a lot of politics and negotiations in life, right? So we can carry disappointments with us. We can carry somebody else's energy. If somebody did a big download of griping about something else that's not even connected to us, but we had to sit and hear it for however long, we can carry that energy too. So what's very important is to be grounded, centered, and balanced. That's nutrition, that's water, that's minimizing alcohol. I can barely drink anymore. And it's very rare, even though I'm a certified specialist of wine. I know wine and spirits very well, but they're not my friend. Um, anyway, but it's also Mother Nature, Mother, Father Nature, because everything in balance, right? It's also getting out. It's also appreciation of art, music, poetry, animals, good conversation. It's it's like today I thought I have so much to do. It's a Sunday. Oh, I should be, there's other things I want to do. Went to the park and enjoyed the heck out of it. And I picked up all this energy and my guides were really, really, really happy. But I brought back some elemental energy to this session. I've been seeing like little dark things dart by here, and I've been hearing giggling. And it's because I was out in nature. You go out in nature if you're not attuned as sensitively as I am. You go out in nature and you come back and you feel good and you don't know why you feel good. Maybe it's the fresh air, but I guarantee you there was also beautiful energies around you from the grass, from the leaves, from the rocks, the trees, all of that. So we have to experience the dedication of learning how to take care of ourselves. And we have to be consistent with it. And that's the thing. As far as clearing the house, you can clear your house by walking in and with intention pushing white light through every room. You can make it more complicated. You can burn Palo Santo or sage. You can light a candle at the front door, ask all the energy, the stagnant, I call them spiritual dust bunnies, like stagnant energy, to go to the candle at the front door, take that out. There's many, many ways to do it. It comes down to your intention and the purity of your intention, and then how you maintain your home afterwards. If your home is filled with illicit drug dealing and pornography and things like that, that space clearing, you might as well have not done it. So your home needs to be filled with laughter and joy. That doesn't mean there won't be arguments or tension from time to time, but clean it up. Clean it up with your intention, your good thoughts, and love. Okay. You said skip down a couple. Okay, I hear you. Oh, I see. I knew there was going to be, this is good, a ghost question. Initial D, she wants to ask, is there such a thing as ghosts, or is the person seeing them just sensitive to seeing spirit? Is there such a thing as ghosts, or is that just a sensitivity to seeing like a spirit, meaning like a soul? I get it. So yeah, there are ghosts. There are souls that, for whatever reason, don't want to live fully in the spirit world, and maybe even don't want to go and be there for whatever reason. I just think it's super rare. I think, for every one ghost, there's probably 1,000 ghost TV shows, But what I found is, I'll give you an example right here. I stayed in a hotel last month in Edinburgh that had been a train station, and it had been renovated into a hotel. And the whole time I'm over in Scotland and Ireland, crazy stuff is happening. A lot of communication through the lights. Like I walk into a room and I feel this presence pressing down. The lights click a couple times, and I'm just like, okay, I see you. I know you're here. A lot of little things like that. I ran into a soul at this hotel who had been frightening some of the employees there. And one woman in particular, she was in her early 20s, and she was working there as a massage therapist. And she told me how frightened she was. I made a video about this on my YouTube channel. I'm just going to give you the cliff notes here. And she said, I feel her right here. I feel like she's sitting over in that chair. And ultimately, I got to communicate with this particular spirit, and I liked her. I invited her, and she was waiting in my room when I got back there after that conversation anyway. And I asked her, what's up? And she's like, she is a soul. She's fully transitioned to the other side at her time. But she was a secretary at this train station. And she said, I loved my job. I loved the people, and I still love the people. So she's coming back and she's checking on things. This was like home to her. And that was lovely. There was another soul, and you know what? Just go to my YouTube channel if you want to hear the whole story. The other soul I wasn't too crazy about, and I don't know what it was, and I didn't look any further into it. But yes, my definition would be a ghost is one who, I guess, haunts, for whatever reason. I know, LR said, tell them some are too scared. You guys can help with this. Some souls are frightened to fully cross over and go home, because that's, heaven is their home, Summerland, Valhalla, whatever name you want to give it. It's their true home. Don't be too anxious to go there yet. Your time's not here. But some are so frightened of judgment, fire, and brimstone that they won't go. I've had experience with a particular soul like that too, that was afraid that they would have to be with a certain family member they didn't want to be with if they crossed over. And we're like, I was convincing this soul, you have free will, and you'll talk to that family member and work things out, but you don't have to be with anybody you don't want to be with. And then she finally crossed over. But I don't go looking for this stuff, you guys. I'm not knocking on doors and saying, hey, I want to bring a paranormal crew in here. But if something is presented to me by the source, it's like synchronistic, I can help out or whatever, I'll do it just to help out. But you guys can help with this, because you can help spread the word. And I know many of you are, that there's no judgment, that our source, our God, is not a jealous and punishing God, but a God of pure love that lives within us. And there's nothing to fear upon crossing over. Nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. So that creates a whole lot of ghosts, you guys. And boy, when you get into history that goes back a few thousand years in Europe, there's layers and layers and layers of history, place memory that I was reading, psychometrizing objects, walls, just layers, layers and layers. Oh, he's moving me. Where? First initial G is asking, have any of your guides identified as being off planet? Yes. I have Bruce Aaron, who has identified as being from Arcturus. And there was a person who's very well known who had a guide that looked like my guide. And we were sitting in like a friend's circle a few years ago. And I didn't know that he had an Arcturian guide. And I didn't know my guide was from Arcturus. I just knew that there was this one that I had seen before and was coming around a lot, looked very, very different. I knew he was from a different vibration, dimension, never had incarnated as a human ever. And so we're seeing a circle. I'm picking up something for you, to my friend. It's like, you have this man, here's what he looks like. And he's sort of humanoid, but he looks different. And he's got this light around his head that looks like this. He has a sword. And he's like, that's my Arcturian guide. And I went, and I turned to Bruce Aaron. I'm like, you're from Arcturus. Why didn't you tell me? And it was like, I was kind of nonplussed. Why don't you just say I'm from Arcturus? And what I got back was, he showed me this montage of how absolutely terrified I was as a child of aliens. When the neighborhood kids would get together, and I may look delicate, but I could keep up with everybody else. We'd play pretty rough. We'd be running, we'd be climbing and on construction. We'd be, doing all kinds of things. And we played Star Trek. And I was always the one shooting the aliens and scared of the aliens. And for a long time, other sensitives would tell me, you have the interdimensional beings, you have the extraterrestrials around you. And I'm like, tell them to go away. So Bruce Aaron just let it unfold. He just let it, let me realize, who he is, where he was from, and he's not around all the time. Some of your guides are going to come and go for a season or a reason, depending on what you're working on. And he's actually kind of been a little scarce the last few days. I'm going to ask. I thought I felt him here a while ago, but I don't right now, so he's not here. But I don't think he loves all the Halloween stuff. They still have personal preferences. So yeah, the decorations started coming out and I started seeing a lot less of him. But yeah. In March next year, 2023, at the Sedona Ascension Retreat, I'm speaking a couple times, and one is a workshop on spirit guides, but one of the keynotes on Saturday morning, I'm talking about the extraterrestrials and the ultra terrestrials and their agenda. So I've really been getting into that quite a bit lately. Okay, can you talk more about the ability of communities to collectively help the newly dead move easily into the next realm, as is done with the Buddhist prayer for the Bardo? Um, our our First Nations are wonderful at praying or singing their loved ones who have left the body, singing them and accompanying them with music and their love when they cross over to the other side. They also use the drums, percussion instruments, and flute, and many, many cultures have their own way of coming together in collective grief, but collective celebration of life also. And we see in ancient Egypt, there were very set procedures in terms of how a body was prepared, the prayers that were prayed as the body was prepared, the gods that were invoked for each step of the way. And that's why one of the things I say, and I please just take this with a grain of salt, but I say, if you can, always go to the funeral. Always go to the funeral. If it's a friend and it's like, oh, it's too sad, my friend's so-and-so died and they've invited me to the funeral, or they, they texted me the funeral information, or they posted it on social media or whatever. If you can go. A lot of people are doing them on Zoom now, because you become a stronger part of that collective celebration and release when you participate in some way. I always will go. And fortunately, there's Zoom now. Prayers are important. The folks that are crossing over tell us over and over and over again that, even if they were really, really ill before their body died, and they wanted to rest a little bit before they went to their welcome home parties and things like that, or did their life review or whatever else goes on over there, when they were ready, they heard and felt every prayer that was said for them. So I've asked before, this is interesting too, because I remember putting this in my diary. I've asked before, do the souls need us to all come together? And they said, it's for the living. It's for the living. They always look and see who's shown up for their memorial or funeral or whatever it is. They always want to see, and they always show up there. And when I was a little girl and my granddad, the preacher, was performing funerals, I always went, because I wanted to see the soul, how good they looked alive. They were open coffins all the time then, unless they were coming back from Nam. And I would look at the coffin and go, yeah, that's not them. And I'd look at the soul, which would stand by the coffin and then walk around. And, if I was like making eye contact with them, they're like, you can see me. They do like to see who's coming together and who's celebrating them. But it's for the grief. It's to help with the grief that all of the cultures around the world have their own ways of handling death. There are even some cultures that I can't remember. If you put in the chat box if you remember which culture it is, but they keep the body on display in another room of the house. Not sure I want to do that, but you know, a lot of what we do in grief is to support those who are grieving. Doesn't need that to happen, but is going to check and make sure, is everybody doing what they're supposed to do? And, you know, I just find it fascinating. I know I'm going to come to my service. I want to see, you know, I'm going to see what everybody's wearing. Here's it, Karen, here's another one in the comment box. I have been reading up about setting up an altar, leaving out food and drink to invite loved ones in. Is this of any real help during these next 3 days? And that reminds me of some cultures feeling that the first 3 days after physical death is when the spirit is the closest and you know, wants our support, and we can feel their love. These are all, let's put it this way. I just go back to, we take our personalities with us when we leave the body. We take our customs, our expectations with us. The most important thing that we take is the love and all those memories. So if that's the culture, yeah, you should do that, because they're going to be like, what's up? What? I didn't get my food left out. Or, you know, it's really about the love, and it's really about the appreciation and the ways that we express the appreciation of who we were with that person. You know, a lot of the grief is we miss who we were with that person. We miss the conversations with that person. You're still who you are, and they still have those memories with you, but they're going to have the expectation of, you know, this is what I want. And if something's in the will, and, you know, they want to make sure that you got this certain ring or something, you better get that ring, you know, and don't worry if you're sitting there going, well, I never got the ring I was promised. You probably will. And time is different there. You know, time is different, but things seem to work their way out. It goes there. Baron's joining us now. He's on the spirit guide team also. It's what are people used to? What do they feel is weird or unusual in the United States, and especially here in Arizona? A lot of our homes are built over other homes. And in the 19th century, your body stayed in the house for days afterwards before there was any kind of burial. That was normal. So, you know, times change and customs change, but thanatopsis, or, you know, studying death and mores around death and how it's all handled is it's a huge subject area. If I think what helps is to just keep in mind, you know, they just want to know that we are keeping their memory alive. They just want to know that we're going to continue in our lives. Our loved ones in spirit just want the love to continue. And if they associate love with, you know, every week in our family we have a big spaghetti dinner, you darn well better have that big spaghetti dinner. You're going to hear about it somehow. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. I will tell you, at the holidays, I try to give something to everybody who feels called to it. And this year on November 15th and 16th, I have a Spirit Guides retreat online. It's just an hour each night on the 15th and 16th of November, and it's free, but it's going to be very uplifting if you guys want to go to carefreemedium.com. I'll just mention that to you guys. And I'm really happy. I've got a new podcast out called Carefree and Conscious. And there are teaching episodes and interviews, and you can find that through the website too. It's on YouTube. We had Eben Alexander, and we've had Brian Smith from Grief to Growth on, just looking for different ways to create content that's meaningful to people right now. I know that life is really weird. We're coming out of a lockdown mode into inflation, into in America, an election, a lot of different things going on. It's important to remember that you are whole no matter what's going on in the outside world. And if you could just think of this as a collection of experiences, some that you perceive as good and some you perceive as bad, and ask for help, reach out for help when you need somebody to talk to, knowing that you're never really alone, but we need each other. We need the conversation. This is why I appreciate so much in the global gatherings. There are meetings, going on all of the time, but reach out and ask for help and know that this too shall pass. But for now, enjoy Halloween, give yourself some treats. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you like candy corn, I am not your friend. I don't know. I mean, candy corn, really? Do you eat candles or wax? I'm just saying. Oh, I like this. Finally, a Ouija board or talking board type of question. All right. So, as people could call it an alphabet board, a talking board, a Ouija board, whatever you want to call it, spirit board. I have used one, and there was the childhood fun, toy using one, which was silly and goofy. And there's the last 2 years of having experiences with a couple people, one who's literally wrote the book on the boards. And I will tell you that it all comes from your intention of where you're coming from. It's really about, are you coming to this with a heart full of love? And are you open to hearing from guides? Are you open to hearing from someone you're really connected to through a heart-to-heart connection on the other side of life? Or are you going, I want to summon demons, or this is open for whoever, anybody who wants to, or whatever? I don't advise that, because you get somebody kind of pesky hanging out with you. But there is, I have shifted my perspective of, I think maybe that board is inherently bad news to more aligned with this. There are no bad dogs or bad cats. There are bad owners, and with the spirit board, it's not inherently dangerous, but people that play with it and just say whoever wants to come in, you're on your own with that. Let's see. Would it be okay to use ethereal illuminated tarot? Hey, listen, whoever's asking, I think there's several questions about tools, scrying tools, whatever it is, cards, pendulums, any kind of scrying. It's you. You're being the medium when you're using anything, any kind of psychic or intuitive tool. It's you. There's no inherent power in, let me show you. This is not magic. This pendulum is not magical. I'm the magic. You're the magic. It's higher self. It's guides. It's allowing us some way to open up to higher intelligence and inner wisdom. So don't worry about, is this tool okay? Is this tool good? Is this tool bad? How are you using it? What's the most important thing to do? Make notes. After every session, you need a diary. You need to write down the date and what happened in your session, so you can go back and see the patterns and trends and how you're learning. And your mind can't play tricks on you and make something bigger or lesser than what it really was. Okay. All right. Well, you guys, listen, happy Halloween or Samhain. I hope that wherever you are, that you're not eating candy corn. Oh, we're kidding. Just know that this veil is very thin and enjoy the time. And my guides always go back to those words, helpful, hopeful, and healing. Is it 3H? And that comes from Edgar Cayce, who said, whenever we're tuning into energies, Akashic records, working with any of these tools, we come from the standpoint of 3H, helpful, hopeful, and healing. If something is scaring you, step back, reevaluate.
He says, is there something your guides want to say that we didn't ask? So she's asking your guides to say something if you want.
Oh, that's interesting, because right before you could even finish that question, I heard, we want people to dance. We want everybody to dance. Dance today, dance today. I'm going to do that. Put on a song and dance.
Just a quick one. I've heard you say that if we send a card to a loved one in spirit, they will get it. Like if we sit down and write a message on a beautiful card. Can you elaborate a little on that?
They may even watch over your shoulder as you're writing it to them, but to make sure that they get it, just send it with love. I hold it to my heart. I hold it, I write it, put their name on it, and hold it to my heart. And I have had many souls tell me this in session. I'll say, you know, your dad got the birthday card last month, and they're like, like, oh my God. And I'm like, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if you didn't think it worked, why'd you do it? You know, but I'm like, yep, he got it. And I do it too. But hold it to your heart and just say, I'm sending you this card. They receive it. I've just heard it way too many times.
I think that's a lovely thing to remind people who feel that they never got to say what they wanted to say to a loved one.
Yeah, they know about the letters that you write. I think on Bob Olson's Best Psychic Directory, somebody put, I don't even remember this, but somebody wrote on a review of me, they said something about how their mom had come through and talked about a letter that, you know, I wrote my mom a letter and I put an infinity symbol on it and I laid it next to me on the nightstand. And her mom comes in and says, you know, in the reading, I've seen the letter that you wrote me with the infinity symbol. And that woman was sitting at my office and I thought she was going to have a heart attack when I said that. And to me, it's like, you know, it's like the simplest thing in the world. You know, it's just, they're bringing through facts. Like, we think that they're so far away. I think if you just think that they're right here, but moving at a different speed, you know, vibrating a different rate, whatever terminology you want to use, I try to keep it simple. It's not that far away. You know, it's harder to communicate with somebody between northern and southern Arizona than it is to communicate between the living and the spirit person, if you decide you're going to be open to however it works. Carefreemedium.com, we have the Carefree Souls, and we've now started to have satsang, where we're meeting as a group every month, and we're inspiring each other and having an intuitive development as well. And we started in January of this year, and we fine-tuned a lot of things, but it's a nice online community. I also have the online group readings, which I try to keep it limited to 50. I know some mediums, they can't, they have hundreds and hundreds in there. You have a better shot at getting a reading in a smaller group. But the best thing is, in the last couple of months, we've been able to put some of my classes up for streaming on the website. So if you missed something before, you can just go get it and watch it anytime that you want. So there's like, they're live, there's the streaming, there's the webcast, there's the holiday retreat coming up in November. It's like, there's lots of different ways. You have to meet people where they are. And we're doing it.